Recently, I've completed the northern part of the Kungsleden where I did over 100 kilometers on skis, and these are the boots that I use for that trip. This is the ALFA Outback APS 2.0 GORE-TEX ski boot, and this is the top range model for their backcountry boots. ALFA is well known in Scandinavia. They're a Norwegian company and they make ski boots and also normal hiking boots. So let's look at some of the features of these boots. The ALFA Outback has a built-in gaiter, which is a great feature. This means you don't need to have an extra gaiter that you put on top. It's all integrated, and having this built-in gaiter instantly makes this boot feel expedition ready. The gaiter mainly prevents snow from coming into your boot, but also provides you with some extra protection from the cold and insulation in really cold conditions. If it gets too hot, as it can get sometimes, you can easily unzip this. And because there's a Velcro connection at the top, this can still remain in place. And on the back, there's a way of tightening it so it will stay on your leg. The boot has some reinforcements on the side. The toe box is reinforced, the heel is reinforced. The inner side is also reinforced with leather, and this panel is made out of Cordura fabric. Cordura is a fabric that's also used in motorcycle clothing. It means it's very abrasion resistant and it's very strong. It's good to have it on this side, as this side is more prone to damage from your skis. Again, this part, the toe box, feels very, very sturdy. You don't see this on a normal hiking boot. Speaking of normal hiking boots, once we open this up and get inside of the boot, you start to see that this actually looks more like a normal hiking boot than perhaps an alpine ski boot if you're used to that. If you're used to the Scandinavian style of skiing with a loose heel and with a soft boot, this will not be anything new for you. But if this is your first time, keep in mind this is not sturdy. So if you've never skied with boots like this, you're in for a surprise. If what you're used to is this type of boot, feels very connected to your ski, with this it's a totally different experience. Let's continue exploring the boot from the inside. As you see, the tongue is connected fully. It is integrated as well. This is good news, preventing any snow from coming inside. There's a good lacing system, although I do think this could be improved, but more on that later. Looking inside, this is just a single boot. It's not a double boot like the Polar APS. A double boot means that the inner boot is removable. So essentially the insulation part from the boot you could remove and dry separately, and I think that's the biggest advantage of having a double boot, aside from the fact that they usually provide some extra warmth. And that is something to consider, especially on longer trips when you don't have the opportunity to dry your boots. If your feet get wet from sweat or from snow and you're out for days or weeks or maybe months, how will you go about drying them? There is a significant price difference between the Polar APS and the Outback APS. The Polar APS is $7.99, the Outback APS is $4.99. However, ALFA charges €250 extra for a large size, which made these Outback APS boots €750. So then the difference is only €50. I chose these ones for the same reason I choose all my boots. They were available in my size. If I could have gotten the Polar APS, I probably would have chose those when the difference is only €50 and you get an advantage of having a removable inner boot. That being said, I didn't really need that. On my recent trip, I was able to keep these boots very dry, and I'll tell you later on in this video how I did that. So one more feature to mention is that these boots have the RECCO system built into them. And RECCO is a technology that is used in avalanche rescue. Products that have that technology built in, they emit a signal that can be picked up with a special device, And with that, the rescue team is able to find you and your gear more easily. This feature is present on the Outback APS boots. It's not on the Polar APS boots. I'm not sure why. Perhaps the ALFA team figured that if you're on the South Pole, no one is coming to rescue you anyway. Okay, so let's look at the durability. I've used them for over a week, almost 2 weeks, and I did over 100 kilometers on them. And what I do see are some creases forming already. I'm not sure if you can see that. It's around here. There's some damage basically just from doing this. And there's some creases over here as well. Looking at this damage on the leather, it just looks like it's not real leather. It's damage that you would expect on fake leather products, so I'm not sure. I don't know how this will develop over time. We will see. One thing that I'm very worried about when skiing on these boots is this pin, because this is basically what is keeping you connected to the skis, and we'll look at how you connect this to the skis, and we'll talk about the skis in the next video. So the pin is very, very close to the edge, and my worry is if this somehow pops out of this rubber, then you have a very big problem, because this is the only thing that is keeping you connected to the skis. I have not seen any issues reported with these shoes specifically. I have, however, seen a video of someone breaking their pin on their Nordic style boot. I don't know which brand it was, I don't know which shoe it was, but it is something that I had in the back of my mind when skiing, especially when falling down, because you remain connected. On normal alpine boots, the skis disconnect from your boots, so you won't be able to break them. But with the Nordic style nnn-bc boots, they remain connected. Okay, next up, let's talk about comfort of these boots. The nice thing is they are very easy to put on. The Gaiter opens up easily, the shoe opens up easily. There's a wide opening, you can slide your foot right in, no problem at all. This makes it very, very nice when you're just camping in the snow and you don't want to tighten them maybe necessarily, you just want to put them on, walk outside quickly. I just had my foot inside, I didn't bother to tighten them. I would just put the Gaiter up, I would zip it up, and with that I was able to walk outside even in deep snow, and having this built-in Gaiter was just an amazing feature. So another thing I was worried about is not being able to actually use them before going on my trip. I've tried them on a few times just in an indoor ski facility, but that's not enough to really have the boots form to your, and going hiking or skiing with a new boot or shoe is never a good idea. Unfortunately, I didn't really have a choice, so I needed to do that, and I was pleasantly surprised by the comfort of this shoe. On day 3 or 2, 3, I did start develop some issues, and that was around my toe box and also where you flex the boot, like here. It could have also been influenced by my VBL socks that we'll talk about in a moment. I didn't have any blisters, but I did have basically just open wounds on my toes and my foot. I did use tape, but that's not always helping either. Overall, I found that in the morning, when you put on these shoes and your feet hurt, the first hour of skiing you maybe feel it, but then your body realizes it has bigger problems than, you know, your little toe hurting, so you just sort of forget about it and just go on. In terms of temperature, my feet were never cold. The temperature was between sometimes 0 degrees, sometimes minus 20 degrees. Never had any issues. The only time my feet would get a little bit cold was when I was sitting in the tent, especially when it was minus 20. You're sitting in a tent, you're not moving your toes. But then just moving my toes a little bit or going outside to move around a little bit helped to warm me up. ALFA's ambassador, Alexander Game, he used the Polar APS boots on his trip to Antarctica, and he said he didn't have a single blister during the whole trip, which was 87 days, I believe. Again, it's very personal. It really depends on your socks, your feet, if you're using tape, if you're using VBL socks, things like that. Overall, I'm quite happy with the comfort and the warmth provided by these boots. Okay, so now let's look at a few things that I think could be improved on these boots. First of all, ALFA could improve the information on the sizing of these boots. Honestly, when I ordered them, I didn't think they would fit, but apparently the measurements were for the foot and not for the length of the boot. Although I haven't experienced any problems with it, I think the zipper, if it was to the side, as on the La Sportiva mountaineering boots, that would be better, because that would improve maybe any potential damage to the zipper, but also any wind blowing through the zipper. So this actually is a double zipper. So one goes from top and the second one goes from the bottom. And that's where another issue is. I won't open it because this zipper isn't working that well, so it's best to keep it closed. So another thing that I think would be nice to have is if the laces or the lace rings would have lace stoppers. Let me show you what I mean. On this La Sportiva boot, you can lace it up here, and if you pull it, so that makes tightening the boot just so much easier. To unlock it, you would pull it to the side. Not a big deal, but that would just make these boots so much better. One final thing is on the back. I'm not a big fan of these laces. The Polar Appius, they have an elastic cord. In my opinion, that just would have been a better choice. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention, underneath on the sole, there's also some grip elements to prevent you from sliding on ice. One last thing are the VBL socks. These are from Exped. The brand doesn't really matter. So this is essentially just a plastic bag that goes over your foot. I used first a thin liner, then this sock, and on top of that a warm wool sock. And this works very, very well. But the downside is sometimes it can create creases like this. And if this is around your toes and with the boot you're pressing on it, then you're creating friction. And I think that contributed to the wounds on my feet. Functionally, they worked very, very well. In terms of comfort, perhaps not always as great. So these all are the Outback Appius. Let me know if you have any questions about this boot or any other gear that I used on my trip, and watch this video next. That will be on the skis that I've used with these boots.